Thanks everyone for joining today as well, and hopefully you can hear and see us, so you're all good. And yeah, today what we'll be going through is a bit around Ramsay and having a Q&A session. So I'm Shek and I'm from Prospel, and we're joined here by the rest of the team from Ramsay who will be walking you through the session today. And so what we'll be doing is getting started quickly. So yeah, please feel free to pop any questions you have in the Q&A chat. However, what I'd request you do is please hold questions till the end because a lot of your questions will be answered. Now, just so that we can all get a bit of an idea around a bit about the audience, a bit about yourselves, I'm going to pop a couple of questions onto the screen. So if you could please help out and fill that in. So the first question we had is, which state are you joining from? Queensland, WA. Queensland's in the lead. Oh, there you go. A couple from New South Wales.
It's like the state of origin.
I know. Yeah. WA has a great showing today, though. Perfect. Well, I'll end this poll and I'll just share it with everyone just so you can see who else we're joined by today. Now, thanks for sharing your response to that question. The second question we had is, what are you studying to work as? We're all here with potentially some different backgrounds, so would love to hear what are you studying to work as. Perfect. I will end the poll and share the results with you all. So it seems like our RNs and ENs are winning, and we've got a few rare midwives as well on the call here today, which is great. Thanks, everyone. Now, final question, and this will help us address some of the information on today's Q&A session, is around your application. Have you already applied to the program? Oh, it's pretty close. So we got a 60-40 response, which is interesting. So we'll go through some information that addresses both. Now, thanks all for sharing with us a bit around you and background. So like I said, I'm Shek from Prospel, so I'll be more the tech support in the background. And what I'll do is I'll introduce you to Aaron and get him to introduce the wider team. So Aaron, I'll pass to you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Shek. Thank you all for joining today. I do have two screens, so if I look this side, apologies. I'm not being rude. I've just got both screens open. But today we're going to be showing our Ramsay Graduate Pathways program to you all. You may be a first-year student, you might be a second-year student, or you might have already graduated and looking for a graduate program. But either way, what we aim to do today is to answer a lot of your questions about the graduate program through our content that we have on these slides. Like Shek said at the start, we just ask that you will hold your questions until the end. We will have a designated Q&A at the end where we can answer any remaining questions that you guys may have. So with that said, we'll get started. So the first thing we'd like to do is an acknowledgement of country. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Ramsay Healthcare acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today on the call. So I come to you today from the lands of the Yugambeh people of the Yugambeh Nation. This covers much of the Gold Coast, the Scenic Rim, and parts of northern New South Wales. Interestingly enough, the suburb that I actually live in is Mudgeeraba, and this is an Indigenous word which actually means place of sticky soil, which I found interesting. Go to the next slide. So to kick off, we will all introduce ourselves. We're obviously from Ramsay Healthcare. I'll start and then I'll pass it over to the rest of the team. So my name's Aaron. I'm the graduate recruitment lead here at Ramsay.
My name is Caroline. I'm a graduate recruitment officer at Ramsay. We also have a graduate enrolled nurse, Paula Ridsdale, who has joined the call. Shek, would you be able to add Paula as a panelist?
For sure, I can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim?
Hi, my name's Kim. I'm one of the learning specialists with the Learning and Organisational Development team at Ramsay Health.
Hi, my name's Marie. Work closely with Kim, and I'm working very closely with the Graduate Pathways program for 2025 and 2026.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So we'll go to the next slide now. Perfect. So we'll quickly go through today's agenda and what we're going to be covering. So I'll go through about Ramsay. I'll showcase who we are as an organization and give you a bit of a footprint of Ramsay in Australia. Kim and Marie will then go through the program overview and showcase to all of you what's involved in our graduate program. After that, we'll head over to Caroline and she'll be going through the recruitment process of the grad program and how you guys can apply. Then, as Caroline said, we do have one of our graduate ENs on the call, and she'll be introducing herself and speaking to you today. And then at the very end, we'll have a Q&A session where you guys will have the opportunity to ask us any questions that you might have. All right, so to start off with Ramsay, we wanted to give you a bit of an overview of who we are. So Ramsay Healthcare was established in 1964 by Paul Ramsay. We started off with one small hospital, and we have now grown to become the largest private hospital operator in Australia, with a total of 74 private hospitals across the nation. One of the reasons I mention this is because a lot of people don't actually realise that their local hospital is actually part of the Ramsay Healthcare network. So to give you some examples that you might be familiar with, if you're in Brisbane, you've probably heard of Greenslopes Private Hospital or St Andrews. If you're in Melbourne, you've probably heard of Northern Private or Warringal. Sydney, we have St George, Westmead and North Shore. And then WA, we have Hollywood and Joondalup. These are just some common examples that you guys might be aware of if you're in the metro locations. So to summarise, we have a total of 74 hospitals in Australia, including mental health, 2 public facilities, hospital in the home, telehealth, allied health, and a Ramsay Pharmacy franchise network as well. So this gives you all a visual representation of everything I just said in the previous slide about Ramsay in Australia, and really gives you a visual of the footprint that we have. Before we go into the program, I just wanted to give you a quick story. So I want to acknowledge I'm not a nurse. I don't have a clinical background, but the advice that I received from one of my mentors when I was younger can be applied to any professional industry. And I want to quickly share a quick story about this. So when I graduated from uni, I had no idea which company I wanted to work for. I knew what I wanted to do, but I just didn't know where I wanted to go. And I had a family friend that I considered a mentor, and he gave me some of the best career advice that I ever got. And the advice that he said was, Aaron, make sure you apply for a large international organization that has a solid footprint in Australia. And the reason for this is that large companies offer diverse career pathways, they have solid remuneration structures, they offer work flexibility and employee benefits that are governed by HR policies and procedures. That's why I chose Ramsay. So throughout these slides today, what we aim to do is showcase to you all what's available to you if you're successful in securing a position in our graduate program. Before we get into that, I just wanted to quickly showcase that Ramsay in Australia is not only just in Australia, we're worldwide. So we're in Europe and the United Kingdom, which is fantastic for our staff as they can move across the globe and it creates more opportunities for them. In Europe, we treat 11 million patients in the UK, and we have 34 acute hospital and procedure centres. We also have 7 sites in Asia as well. So as you can see, we are global and we're a global private health organisation. So now I'm going to hand over to Kim and Marie from our Learning and Development team, and they're going to give you an overview of what to expect in the graduate program.
Thanks, Aaron. So I wanted to go through what the journey would look like being a graduate within Ramsay. So when you start, we do have a rolling intake of when you can join the Graduate Pathways program. So when you start, depending on the time of year, you will all join our next cohort, our next intake cohort, to start the learning journey. So we have 2 main intakes at February or August of when the Graduate Pathways program starts, but start date, you'll then just join the next cohort. The journey from there, Kim, I'll get you to, is you'll start in February or August. In June or August of that first year, you will commence your planning for your development year. So the first year is your graduate year, the second year is your development year. We want to be quite clear there. You're a graduate for 1 year, successfully complete the project, and you're into your development year. So we start planning that with you and your educators as June and August. Once you complete your graduate year, which is after 12 months of joining with us, you are then no longer referred to as a graduate, but you're going to move into your second year, which is your development year. And that's where you can consolidate the role you've taken on or take on a new challenge. You can undertake study, different pathways that Kim is going to walk you through in a moment. And then your program completion will be 12 months after you've started. So that's the overall program flow. A big component of the graduate year are study days. Now, there's 5 study days. The first one that you'll participate in is starting your journey, and that's your orientation to the graduate program. It also sets you up for looking at some good work practices of planning your day, planning your shift in whatever clinical setting you're in, be it midwifery or ward or peri-op. Second one is working in a team with focus on communication tools such as clinical handover and documentation. These are really important communication tools. We don't just talk about them. These are workshops and case studies where you will actually have the scenario and have to stand and deliver or document. So you really get some practice and some feedback. Day 3 is managing patient care, developing critical thinking and clinical reasoning skills through practical scenarios. This one's got a big focus on deteriorating patients. So you take your critical thinking, clinical reasoning skills and apply them to deteriorating patient scenarios drawn from all across the nursing and midwifery disciplines. Working with patients is a focus on strategies including difficult conversations, managing aggression, and addressing mental health challenges. So it's when things are maybe not going so well for our patients and they need us to have extra support. And finally, we finish off with your professional life, which is guidance on professional presentation, goal setting, and planning your future career. So this is one of the support mechanisms that we have, supported by us as National LNOD and also your educators. During your journey, you will be supported on your site by your graduate coordinator. They organise study days, they organise workshops, learning opportunities. They'll do regular check-ins with you and your supervisor, seeing if you need any additional support, and also set up development plans to help you achieve your goals. Your supervisor and preceptor offers the on-the-job guidance and mentorship. They're going to help you translate the theoretical knowledge you've picked up at in training or TAFE or uni and translate it over into the real-world practice in your environment that you're working in. So that's where the focus is on clinical skills, and they'll give you feedback on how you're progressing. We also have a team of clinical facilitators and educators on site. They're really there to help you at the bedside, doing procedures. If you have put your hands up and say, I haven't done this before, can I have some support? You're going to get that support from your clinical facilitators or educators on site. And of course, we love the help from fellow graduates. Our study days are designed not only to give you practice and workshop experience, but also to get you to network with graduates at your own site and in some cases at sister sites. Thanks, Kim. So our program duration for year 1, this is your development year. It's completed in 12 months of the program, full-time or part-time. There is the ability and opportunity to explore specialisations in rotations, e.g. peri-op, mental health, maternity, based on what you want to achieve. There's also opportunities for direct entry. Study days I've mentioned, they are mandatory, but they're also paid. There's on-the-job training offered on a regular basis. So to participate in individual group activities run by your facilitators and educators. There is a performance appraisal during the first year, and that is to look at your performance, discuss with you your goals, how you're developing, what support we can provide you. So it's part of that mentorship and support mechanism to help you through that first graduate year. There's a graduate project that looks at the daily practices that you do in your clinical setting, how they link to our procedures, how they link to the policies, and how they link to the national health standards. Policies and procedures are there to protect you, to protect our patients and protect Ramsay. that project just shows you the links of how they're all connected. We encourage you to keep a professional portfolio. Just think of it as your continuing professional development portfolio through demonstrating training sessions that you've attended and reflection on those. There will also be core competencies that you need to complete to fulfill the mandatory requirements of the graduate year. And once that is done, you will then receive your certificate of completion, which means you are no longer a graduate. You have achieved all of the milestones of that year, and you will no longer have a graduate status. You'll be as part of the normal Ramsay family. I'm going to hand over to Kim now, I think, because yes, Kim, you're talking about year 2.
Thanks, Marie. I am. So in your second year, which we call your development year, this is when you move in, have different opportunities to move into different areas of the business. So the first thing that you can do is you can go down specialised pathways. So that is, if you want to specialise in a particular area, either a clinical space or a role, you have the opportunity to be able to do that in your second year and explore those areas. The second thing that you have is the opportunity for secondment. So you can be seconded into different areas of the business. You can be seconded into our clinical trials network, which is part of our research arm. You can be seconded into a rural position if that's what you choose to do, or if you're from rural, you can come to metro. Alternatively, if you're working in subacute, you might be seconded into an acute area or vice versa. Given that we're such a large network, we do have a lot of flexibility in what we can organise for your graduate year, provided there's a role at the other end is a big thing. Scholarship funding. So we do have lots of funding opportunities. So being such a large network, we have very strategic partnerships. So we do have lots of partnerships that offer additional tertiary education at a much reduced fee price. And for those that we might not have a pricing agreement with, we can actually offer scholarships that you can apply for during your development year. We also have the regular Ramsay National Scholarships, and you're welcome to apply for those as well. You can have advanced skill development, which means if you're looking to have advanced skills throughout your career, you might want to be a nurse practitioner, or you might like to take the role of a midwifery practitioner, or you might like to take the role of perioperative nurse assistant. And these are opportunity pathways that you can start on during your second year of the program. We do encourage continued networking, so we constantly encourage you to reach out to different areas of the business, whether they be in operational or the hospital and facility environment, or whether or not they're within the corporate environment. We encourage all of the graduates to make sure that they cast their nets far and wide within the company for networking. We offer mentorship and guidance during our second year, because even though you're no longer a graduate, it doesn't mean that you completely stop that learning path. A good clinician will continue development for their entire life. And I'm nearly 30 years in and I'm still learning new things as a clinician every day. So don't forget, you can still have those mentor relationships as you go along. We have lots of different career pathways that you can tap into. Again, because we are such a large network, there's lots of different opportunities that you can go into. And we encourage people to really think about and explore those opportunities early on in their career. Now, if you don't know what you want to do in your first or your second year, that's okay as well. But we want to let people know what the opportunities are out there for you to be able to explore them. And if you do have your heart set on something, so that we can help you build what you need to grow. And finally, there's a big focus on consolidation. So during your first year of the graduate program or the graduate year, basically you're kind of scrambling to pick up skills and bed them down and really understand what you need to do. By the time you move into your second year, you've got a really good handle on what you need to do clinically. So you're looking at making sure you can solidify and consolidate all of those skills and then start to grow and expand on them as you're going along. Some of the different opportunities that we offer in the second year, sometimes they do change from year to year, but we do have kind of a core base that we are able to offer. So some of the things on offer this year are the postgraduate opportunities with the University of Tasmania, where we offer a postgraduate study at significantly reduced costs. The enrolled nurse to registered nurse program with Charles Darwin University, and I think Paula might touch on that a little bit later perhaps, which is where we support our enrolled nurses to transition into registered nursing opportunities. Consolidation of practice. You might think the worst thing that you can think of is thinking about extra study. You've just finished whatever your study is, and you couldn't possibly bear to face it at the moment. And that's okay. We understand that people might want to either have a break or just really focus on being the best that they can be in the point that they are. So we offer something called consolidation of clinical practice. And that's where you really hone those skills. And you might look at things like expanding into cannulation or male catheterization, or just expanding your scope of practice in the area that you're currently working in. As I mentioned, we do have scholarship opportunities available through the development year. So it's really about embedding and upgrading your clinical skills, being able to explore a new area of nursing practice. And graduates continue to practice and refine their skills basically throughout their entire career. So the knowledge that you get in practical workplace environment is supported by a career development plan. And that's really important because it assists you as a beginning practitioner to be able to identify areas where you might need to develop your practice, or you might need to just strengthen that a little bit. It helps you have a structured opportunity to approach those learning journeys, essentially. So we utilise internal and external continuing professional development opportunities, as well as on-the-job training, which is really important. We encourage really robust discussions with your clinical manager or your clinical educator to ensure that your development goals are A, achievable, and B, that you are working towards meeting them and you are meeting them as you continue to develop. Again, we also offer those regional metro exchange opportunities or those subacute acute exchange opportunities. So next, I'll hand over to Caroline. Thanks, Caroline.
Thank you, Kim. So I'll be walking you through what you can expect from the recruitment process for our graduate program. So this is a simple 5-step process. The first step is, of course, submitting your application. So applications for our mid-year intake, which commences between August and October, are currently open. If you've graduated or you will be graduating any time from now until October 2025, you're eligible to apply for this intake. For those of you who will graduate between November 2025 and April 2026, you'll be eligible to apply for our February 2026 intake. Applications for this intake will be mid-year. So those of you that have not yet applied, we'll provide you with a QR link and a link at the end of this session, which will take you through to our application form. Once you've completed and submitted your application, it will be reviewed by your preferred site and you will receive an email notifying you of your application outcome. So please note, applicants who have applied for the internal early access period should expect to hear back by the first week of May, and those who are applying for the external intake should expect to hear back by the last week of June at the latest. If you're selected to progress to the interview stage, you'll be contacted by site to confirm the details of your interview, and this will either be by phone or by email. So depending on the hospital, interviews may be conducted one-on-one, within a group, face-to-face, or virtually. If you're successful within interview, the next step will be to move through to the reference checking process. So you should receive an email from our external reference checking partners, referee, prompting you to provide the contact information of one referee. So this referee can be a current manager or a recent clinical facilitator or educator that you've worked with within the last 6 months. So upon completion of successful reference checks, we then will move through to the conditional verbal offer. So if you choose to verbally accept the offer, you'll receive an email prompting you to log into your applicant portal and upload your pre-employment documentation. So these pre-employment documents must be submitted in the portal within 5 working days, and your offer of employment is conditional on satisfactory pre-employment checks confirming your suitability for employment. You will not be issued a formal contract until we receive your pre-employment documentation. So I'll just run you through what those pre-employment documents are. So the formal request for your working rights within Australia. So for Australian citizens, this will include a copy of your passport, or if you don't have a passport, this will be a copy of your driver's license or government photo identification accompanied by either your birth certificate or your Australian citizenship certificate. For those of you that are international visa holders, you'll be required to provide a copy of your passport and also your visa immigrant letter. And for those who are on a student 500 visa, you'll also be required to submit a confirmation of enrollment letter. The next step of the pre-employment form will ask you for your APRA registration details. So if you're already registered with APRA, you'll need to provide your registration information. If you've not yet graduated or you have not yet registered with APRA, that's perfectly fine. Simply select the option indicating that you're not registered and you can still submit this pre-employment form, which is important again for us to be able to issue you your offer. For those that aren't registered with APRA, at the time of submitting the pre-employment form, you'll be asked to provide your registration details later as part of your onboarding process. So please note, you'll not be able to begin your graduate program until you've officially registered with APRA. So we recommend for anyone that has not yet registered to pre-register on the APRA website, as this will help to expedite the processing of your registration once you graduate. And the final step of your pre-employment form is uploading your current Working with Children's check. So please make sure to apply for a paid Working with Children's check and not a volunteer Working with Children's check, and to make sure that this check that you've applied for is in the state which you will be working. So those of you that are in Queensland, you are not required to submit a Working with Children's check. That's the only state that's an exception for that. So following your submission of your pre-employment checks, you will be issued with a formal letter of offer. So you'll need to log into your employee portal to review and accept your offer within 3 working days. Next slide takes us through to our application criteria. So in order to be eligible for our mid-year intake, it is essential that you meet the following criteria. So in terms of education, you must have completed or be on track to complete your diploma or Bachelor of Nursing or Midwifery. In terms of registration, you must be eligible for APRA registration as an enrolled nurse or midwife by October 2025 for this mid-year intake. With working rights, you must make sure that you hold valid Australian working rights. So please note that Ramsay Healthcare do not sponsor graduates. Great. So applying is simple. It's a simple process which should take around 10 minutes. So what it will include is providing an up-to-date resume. A cover letter is not required. A copy of your most recent clinical placement feedback form. So if you're currently undertaking placement, you can submit the feedback form from your previous placement. And please note that this form is not a Ramsay specific form. You can submit your ANSAT form provided by your education provider. You'll also need to include within the application a personal summary, and you can do this either in writing or by video format. It will give you the option. So this is your chance to explain why you're interested in joining the Ramsay Graduate Program and how your core values align with the Ramsay Way. You'll also have the opportunity when completing the application form to select your first and second preference hospital and speciality. Okay, so now we'll just run through a few useful tips for applying. So, before applying and interviewing, we recommend you research Ramsay Healthcare and familiarise yourself with our organisation purpose and values. We also recommend reviewing our graduate program details and ensuring you understand the application process. In terms of your resume, when updating your resume, you want to make sure you accurately showcase your experience and skills. So make sure to include any previous paid healthcare experience, as this will definitely strengthen your application. Also, be sure to include your clinical. Oh, be sure to include your clinical placement details, including the hospitals or specialities that you have completed them in. Make sure also to proofread your resume and look for any spelling or grammatical errors. We then move through to your assessing and choosing. So take the time to really carefully assess and choose your speciality and hospital preference. So as mentioned earlier, you'll have the option to select 2 hospital preferences and 2 speciality preferences. So we recommend considering how close these locations are to you, as well as identifying the specialities that interest you the most. A speciality matrix will be included within the application form, so you can refer to it to see which specialities are offered at each site. But also please keep in mind that allocation into your preferred speciality is subject to site requirements and availability. And then our last tip is to ensure that you apply on time and meet the eligibility criteria for our graduate program. So those are all of our tips. We will now move on to, I'll hand over to Paula Ridsdale. And Paula, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and then we'd love to ask you a few questions about your experience with Ramsay.
Absolutely. Nice. Hearing that makes me remember everything I had to do, so don't feel overwhelmed. You'll get there. So I'm
That's nice to hear.
Paula. No, that's okay, Caroline. I graduated in 2023 from the Diploma of Nursing at Box Hill, just so you know that. And I commenced my graduate program at Ramsay at Warringal Private in 2024. So that's a little bit about me. What was the next question, Caroline? Sorry.
Yeah, great, Paula. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll just move through. So I guess the first thing we'd love to ask you is what led you to apply for the Ramsay graduate program?
Okay, good question. I was lucky enough to receive 3 offers for a graduate program, so I applied everywhere. I didn't just put my eggs in one basket, to let everyone know that. What made me pick Ramsay out of the 3 that I did pick was really what you had online initially in respect to the transition program, because my goal was to move to RN as soon as possible. I felt that there was real investment in the Ramsay offering. And the development year didn't put me off. So some people feel like, you're a graduate for 2 years. That's not true. Like Kim had said, it's 1 year. It's actually investment in your learning. So that was a massive tick for me. And then I think probably another thing was at the school I was currently in, I had people going to placement at Ramsay. I wasn't a cadet. I was actually in a fellowship somewhere else. And seeing them come back so happy and like really positive was, not heard of on a lot of student placements, which I'm sure you've probably all felt before.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Paula.
That's okay.
Can you talk to us about your experience within the Ramsay graduate program?
Okay. My experience to date so far, so I guess I'm in my development year, is year number 2. My first 6 months I was on a cardiac ward, so I really wanted to get into cardiac and be, straight into all the exciting stuff. That's definitely what I got, and I loved it. I then progressed to general surgery, which is a lot of urology patients and things like that. I think the one thing I'd like to say about nursing is that if you say what you want to do, people make it happen. They support you, and they definitely do at Ramsay. So I decided to consolidate my learning. So I'm continuing to do another 6 months on Gen Surg because there's just so much going on and to learn. And that's where I'm at the moment. And then because I have aspirations to work in ED, they're looking at putting me in cath lab, which would be my next rotation. These are all my interests, and they're being supported by Ramsay. So that would be my next rotation. And then I'd be looking at, hopefully applying for ED when it opens in 2026 at Warringal is my goal. And just one other thing to say too, through the graduate program, you've obviously got the things that Marie and Kim were talking about with education, but I've also been able to do my IV. I've been able to do my CVAD course. Everything I wanted to do has been supported. It's not, no, you need to wait, or, it's, yep, let's enroll you. You can see where it is online to apply, and you get in and you do it. And that's what I've done to date. And I love it. That's genuine.
That's so nice to hear all of the learning and development opportunities you've been offered. And then also, Paula, can you talk to us on why you love working at Ramsay and why you've chosen to continue your nursing career with us?
Yes, yeah. Well, why I love working is, like I was saying before, everyone's a big team. If you have goals, and you might not know what you want to do yet, but they'll still be nice to you. But you're supported. You're not squashed down to do anything. So I applied for the EN to RN transition. I think that's what you're calling it, is a transition. And I was lucky enough to get that. So I've commenced this year at CDU, which is the partnership. It's going really well so far. So to see that investment in me and being able to, continue to work and to partner with CDU has been great. And that's definitely why I'd continue to stay at Ramsay, is due to that investment. So I've been lucky enough to get that, which is a great opportunity.
Amazing. Thanks, Paula. That was really great.
Okay.
I think now we might open up for the Q&A session. You're on mute, Aaron.
This pretty much concludes the content side of things, like Caroline said. So thanks everyone to join, but we will go to the Q&A now, because we know that you guys might have some questions that we might not have covered. So I think we'll stop sharing the screen and we'll open up the floor. So first of all, we're all here available to answer your questions. So if you have a specific question for one of us, just put it in the chat that who you want that question addressed to, and we're happy to work through them one by one. Shek, I guess we'll just go in order. Do you mind reading the questions as they pop up?
Let's do the first one here. In the event that we do not get into the grad program, how do we progress and break into theatre or grad studies, especially if we're not eligible for a grad program anymore? So you can probably see that on screen.
Yeah, I'll just get the question up. So is the question, I'm just trying to understand, in the event that you're not successful, I'm taking as that question.
I think they were saying that they're not eligible. Maybe it'd be helpful, Aaron and team, to mention what is eligible for the program. So when do you need to graduate? So what's the earliest?
Yeah, sure. Maybe Caroline, I know you covered that. I'll hand that back to you quickly, just to quickly go through the eligibility again.
Yes. So to be eligible for the graduate program, you'll need to be completing your studies by October 2025. And if you are graduating or be registered, completing your studies and be registered with APRA, and if you're graduating after this time, you can then go into our February 2026 intake. We do generally, our eligibility period for people who have graduated earlier is 18 months from graduation. You can apply for our graduate program. In the event that you are not eligible for a graduate program, or if you're not offered a graduate program and you're asking how you would pivot or break into theatre, I might hand that over to Marie or Kim, whether you can assist with that question. Kim?
I will take that one.
Wonderful.
Okay, so basically, there's a couple of things there to unpack. So I'm getting the impression that maybe you finished 18 months or more ago. What I would recommend for you is, if you're not kind of eligible for a graduate program, that you look at doing a refresher course and going into a PPP, which is a professional practice program, which is like a refresher, basically. So you do a clinical refresher with something like the College of Nursing or one of those education providers, and then you would go to a site which is where you would do the practical requirements that you need, because APRA might have put some kind of restrictions on your registration because of that. But the other thing is, like Paula said, I tell everyone, like obviously we want you all to come and work for us, but I tell everyone, apply everywhere and don't put your eggs in one basket, but know exactly where you want to do and where you want to go, so that when you do get the offer from the people, us, that you want to go to, it's a very easy decision for you. That would be my biggest thing. Just keep trying to apply until you really truly are no longer eligible, and then go to a refresher program.
Thank you, Kim.
Thanks, Kim. Shek, do you mind reading out the next one?
Thanks, team. I can see there's a couple of hands up. So what I might do is, if I allow you to talk and you're wanting to and comfortable with that, feel free to just ask the question virtually. So I think I've allowed Sube to talk. So if you unmute, you should be able to ask your question live. I can see one of them's popped off mute. Did you want to ask your question?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we've got you.
Okay, cool. Hi, my name's Shannon. I actually have a couple of questions and I'm not sure exactly who they would be directed to. But is there a breakdown of numbers that the grad program takes on per intake, like state-based, or is it just based on like hospital requirements or like capabilities of graduates that you might want to take on?
I'm happy to try and answer it. Or do you want to go first, Kim? Then I can add anything if you miss it, or...
Yeah, I'm just going to give some general guidance. Don't play the numbers game. Usually people that ask this question look for the facilities that have the most positions available. It's really not the best thing to do. What you really want to be doing is finding the place you really want to work for, and then using your passion to help that get you into the role. Because when you start playing the numbers game, we've all done this for a long time. We can pick it very quickly. Whereas when you genuinely want to work at a facility for a specific reason, that passion tends to come through very clearly to us. And it's something, I've done this for a long time now, and I always say never play the numbers game, because it never works out in your favor, regardless of who you've applied to.
Yeah, that's great. I'm not necessarily playing the numbers game. I'm just trying to understand the opportunity that is available. So, and then my second question was, with regards to the grad program, is there flexibility in the hours? Like, I know some places offer part-time hours, you don't necessarily have to do full-time hours. So is that with all grad programs? And then some of the grad programs, like perioperative, sometimes are like 10-hour shifts opposed to, like, I think they're 7.5 over here on the normal wards. So is that just the perioperative, or are there any other like grad programs that have that requirement?
I'd love to just oh, am I on mute?
No, we can hear
I'd
you.
love to just start off by answering the first part of that, and also handing over to Paula just for her experience with that she'd raised with me. But we do offer full-time and part-time contracts. So our full-time are 76 hours per fortnight, and our part-time recommendation is 48 hours per fortnight, just so that graduates get the maximum benefit from the graduate program. I know that Paula did start off on a full-time contract. Is that right, Paula?
Happy to speak about that.
Yeah,
so I
wonderful.
started full-time in the cardiac ward, and I reached about 5 months, and wouldn't call it burnout, but I was definitely like this, you got the shift working and everything's going on. It was as simple as an email to my direct manager to say, could I drop down to 0.8? So that represented, I think it's 60 hours a fortnight. Not a problem. It was done immediately, and the next roster was catered for. The other thing I'd like to say is, in this period of the 1 year that I've been employed, I've also had to have an unexpected surgery, so that I needed nearly 6 weeks off. That was not a problem. That was discussed. And not just that, they have a paid leave program where I was able to buy additional leave and still get paid for it. And a little bit comes out sort of pre-tax. It's pretty cool. But there's lots of things there, and you just need to speak to your manager. or another person.
Thank you so much, Paula.
I'd like to, going back to your original question, I'd like to just add about how many positions the hospitals take.
Yeah.
Just to give you a bit of a feel, it is really dependent on the hospital executive of that hospital, how many grads they're taking on for that particular intake. That's sort of where it comes from. There's no visibility of that on a public level, but what I can say is the mid-year intake, typically the numbers are a little bit lower. The February intake, we find that hospitals take on more grads in general due to the graduation dates that align with the February cohort. So hopefully that answers your question. There's no way of you seeing what those numbers are. It just depends on how many grads that hospital can take on and in which particular wards.
Yeah, and just to follow on from that, there may be some sites that are not participating within the mid-year intake. Just as Aaron said, it can be a little bit of a smaller intake, but they should be back up and participating in the February. So if there's a site that you've really got your heart set on, please be sure to check again for the February intake.
Okay, thank you.
Ooh.
Thanks, team. Cool. Well, I'll pop that one there. So thanks for your question. I can see there's quite a few here. I think that one's already answered. There's one here around rotations. Is there an option to stay on in the ward to further your learning, or is rotation mandatory?
Do you want me to take that?
I think,
That'd be great.
yeah, that's okay, Kim. Thank you.
Look, usually in your graduate year, if your facility is rotating and the rotation is planned, they usually do like you to rotate on purely because it gets you the biggest exposure in that graduate year. That being said, you can always go back to that first ward at the end of that rotation. Some sites have a little bit more of an ability to be flexible than others. So if you wanted to stay on that ward and there's the option for you to be able to stay on that ward, it may be possible, but it's not always possible. And that's probably the best way I can answer that, because each facility is slightly different in the flexibility that they have. And it also comes down to the number of graduates, because a change in one graduate program has the potential to knock on to all of the other graduates, because if you don't rotate out of that ward, someone else can't rotate into that ward. So it's really quite site specific, if that makes sense.
I think that's really helpful. There's a few questions here around different visas, actually. So maybe just a general question around visa eligibility. Could you elaborate on that, maybe, Caroline?
Yeah, I can definitely speak on that. So I can see one there saying from Precious that you're on a 500 visa, and is it flexible to be part of the program with only 48 hours of work? Absolutely, yes. So as we said before, our graduate programs are offered at permanent part-time. So 48 hours, which I know is the maximum amount of hours you can work on that student 500 visa, is offered for our graduate program. I think there might have been another question I saw about a visa, but it might have
Yeah, it
been.
was the same question, actually.
It was the same question.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a few of those.
I think there's another one there saying that you're on an international student finishing your Bachelor of Nursing in July, and your student visa expires on September, and you can apply for further working visas. Does that impact your application? No, you can still apply as long as you have intentions to move on to, I guess, from a student 500, it would be moving on to that post higher education visa, the 485. So you'll be able to, I believe, select that within your application form, your current visa that you're on, and that you have plans to apply for that 485. And so if you've graduated and you're on your student 500 visa, and you can provide a course completion certificate, we will be able to issue you with a full-time contract if you'd like to work full-time hours. And then when you move on to that 485 visa, you'll be able to continue with full-time hours. We just need to note that obviously your employment is subject to having those valid working rights. So at any time, if you weren't successful in obtaining that next visa, obviously you would not be able to work with Ramsay, as we don't offer graduate sponsorship.
Yeah, I was just going to add to what you just said, Caroline, but you pretty much summed it beautifully. As a general rule, if your visa gives you valid Australian working rights, those visas are eligible. If your visa requires sponsorship, unfortunately, we don't sponsor graduates at this stage. So that's kind of the differentiation point there. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful and clear. There's another theme of questions that I've picked up on here, and quite a few actually. They're all hinting at different types of either specialization or EN to RN conversion. So the theme of the questions have been, if they're subsidized, are all of them subsidized, or is it just the EN to RN conversion for specialization and further study?
It just depends on what your specialisation is. So the EN to RN program with Charles Darwin University. So Charles Darwin are our partner, and is the only one that we partner with. It is heavily subsidised. So it is ensuring and guaranteeing that you have a Commonwealth supported place. So that pulls the average price of your units of study from about $2,500 down to about $550, give or take a little bit, depending on the type. And then you can do, there's different postgraduates that we have that have different subsidised schemes as well. It's just a matter of, kind of knowing which one you're going to. I can't give any specific advice in this kind of general area. But that kind of answered the question.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. We will be running off in 3 minutes. So I can see there's a couple of questions here around a specific application and what's happening with that application. This call is probably not the best place to discuss that. So what I might do is I'll get potentially Caroline or Aaron to put in the general Ramsay email or their own. And maybe you can email them if you have a specific question to where your application is, things like that. I noticed there were 2 or 3 of those.
We can
Yeah.
include it that I know we're planning on sending out a QR code and a link for anyone to apply. Perhaps we can include the email contact address on there, and yeah, feel free to flick through your question to us.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Aaron. And yeah, maybe even just pop it in the chat if student wants easy access for the time being, and we can send you a follow-up email with the details. Now, just to finish off, I think this will be helpful. There are a couple questions around what if I'm not successful this intake, or I wasn't successful, or something happened last intake. Can I apply, or when is the next intake? So if you could share on that, please.
Do you want me to try and answer this, Caroline?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. So obviously a lot of people apply to this program. Now, not everyone can get a position. We would love to be able to offer everyone a position, but it's not always reality, right? If you're unsuccessful, you 100% can apply again. Just because you're unsuccessful for this intake doesn't mean that you'd be unsuccessful for the next intake. My advice to you, if you are unsuccessful, would be to ask for feedback, particularly if you've done an interview at the hospital. Ask for feedback, and then the next time around, really try and showcase how you've worked on that. That would be my first thing. In terms of applying again, if you are unsuccessful, you will have the opportunity to join what's called our Future Graduate Network. We notify that network of all of our application dates year round. So if you join that network, you'll be notified of when the next application dates are, and you can 100% apply again. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And if someone, Aaron, is, let's say, graduating November or something like that, and they miss the cutoff for this program, when is the next program, and can they apply now? Do they have to wait to a certain date? What does that look like?
Good question. I'll try and answer this as best I can. And Caroline or Kim, if you guys want to jump in, go for it. So we have 2 cohorts a year. So we have a mid-year intake and a February intake. The mid-year intake we're live for now, as we've discussed on this call. The February intake typically goes live in around the July sort of period. So if you are graduating November onwards, you can wait until then to apply, and you'll see we'll market it everywhere that we're live during that July period for you guys to apply. If you want to apply now, technically you can. Just keep in mind that not all hospitals are recruiting for this mid-year intake. So you might not be able to select your preferred hospital. If that's the case, I would advise waiting until we advertise in July so that you have more of a variety to apply. If your hospital is recruiting for this intake and you apply now, your application will be talent pooled, and that will be assessed at the next intake if you're still interested at that point. So there's a few layers to it. It really depends which hospital you're applying for will determine what your approach is. Anything you guys want to add to that, or hopefully I've covered?
No, that was great.
Nailed it.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Ramsay team, and thanks everyone for joining today's Q&A session. Now, if you jumped in late because of work or anything like that, we will be hosting another one of these again on the 16th of April. Yeah, and that'll be at 1 p.m. And I think by that point, the time zones have all reset. That is 1 p.m. Sydney time. So yeah, please feel free to join us on that. I have also posted a link in the chat. If you are one of the students that have not already applied, there's a link right there in the chat that you can use to apply. And we'll be sending you a recording of this along with application links and how to get in touch with the recruitment team. So thanks everyone for joining. I'll leave the meeting on for a little bit. Aaron, you wanted to share?
Before we go, I just, on behalf of all of us here from the Learning and Development and the recruitment team, I want to thank Paula for joining us today. It's always great when we have someone in our hospitals be able to join one of these calls and talk to what their experience was like. And I think you're amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Paula.
My pleasure.
Thanks,
Thank
Paula.
you, guys.
No worries.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. And we hope to chat to you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.